My incel nephew wished my unborn child would unalive, so I banned him from attending my family functions. Now everyone is saying he's just a kid and that I'm overreacting, but he's 22. I, 37M, and my wife, 35F, have been arguing about this all week. Our nephew, 22M, has always been troubled, even though my sister-in-law, 44F, and brother-in-law, 48M, have always treated him well. Some examples of his unsettling behavior: he was caught feeding one of my brother-in-law's horses avocados, which are poisonous to horses if you didn't know, to make it sick. I have dogs and don't want him to hurt them as well. He demands to be called the names of 2 specific fictional characters. He believes he is these characters, reincarnated. If you call him by his real name or refuse to go along with his delusions, he becomes aggressive. He carries around a plushie of one of these characters everywhere. There is a hole in the back, and the hole is stained. I have tried not to jump to conclusions about what he does to that plushie and failed. It smells rancid, and honestly, just thinking about the thing makes me want to vomit. I have tried so hard to be patient with his quirks, as my wife puts it, but what really pushed me over the edge is an incident that occurred a few weeks ago. For context, my wife has struggled with infertility for our entire marriage, and we had given up on having our own kid until we recently discovered she is pregnant. Given the fact that she's 35, we have been surprised and overjoyed. A few weeks ago, my wife started randomly receiving rude texts from our nephew, insulting our baby. One text implied that our baby would have FAS, due to my wife's previous drinking problem, even though she has been sober for years. I wanted to call up that insensitive brat and tear into him, but my wife insisted we gently let him know via text that we didn't appreciate his comments. When he kept going and my wife started crying, I called my sister-in-law. She was able to shut him down and get him to apologize. I have no idea what the hell got into him, but I suspect it has to do with his hatred of women. My wife believes that he may be on the spectrum or have some undiagnosed mental illness and that he needs to be treated patiently. I think he has been coddled his entire life, and it has only made him worse. I think if someone doesn't put their foot down, his behavior will escalate into something dangerous. Here's where I'm being told I am wrong. Each year, my wife and I host Easter dinner for her entire family. My wife has already forgiven nephew for the incident and is insisting we invite him so that he isn't isolated from his family, something she believes will worsen his behavior. I see her reasoning, but enough is enough. I refused. I said she is being a doormat like everyone else in the family when it comes to him, and that our manchild of a nephew can't just make her cry and get away with it with an empty apology. Some of my friends are saying that I am being controlling and that I can't stop her from seeing her own family. I feel like I'm going insane. What do you think? Edit. My wife and I had a long talk this morning in which I made it clear that I was more concerned about her and our baby's safety than anything. I also apologized for resorting to name-calling last night. My wife isn't a doormat, she just has a lot of love and patience for her family. It was a hard talk with some tears from both of us, but she agreed that this has escalated to a point that may become dangerous, in part due to the enabling from all of us. Honestly, I am also guilty of coddling him, especially when he was a kid. It's hard to admit when someone you took care of as a kid has grown into someone unsafe to be around, but I think the idea in this comment might work as a way to set boundaries without shutting him out permanently. We are going to call his mother and explain that Easter dinner isn't happening this year if nephew is coming, and that he is welcome to come over when he has a diagnosis and is stuck with a therapist for at least a couple of months. Thank you all for your advice. Update 1. This bizarre series of events started on Easter and has only gotten weirder since. For those of you who don't remember my original post 2 weeks ago, my nephew was banned from our recent Easter dinner due to a concerning pattern of behavior, including recent disturbing text messages to my pregnant wife about her unborn child. Since then, his parents eventually agreed not to bring him after a lot of arguing. My sister-in-law eventually admitted that he may need professional help and that my wife and I may have some reason to be worried for our safety around him, and on Easter, our worries were proven more than reasonable. He showed up uninvited, using my brother-in-law's car. Our dinner was interrupted by aggressive bangs on our door. I don't know how to put this without it sounding insane, so here it goes. My nephew was at our door, holding a sword, and dressed as the Joker. He tried to say something, but I slammed the door in his face and told everyone inside what was going on. Chaos predictable ensued. My brother-in-law, a generally calm guy who I have never seen freak out or get angry, turned beet red and went outside. He ended up literally chasing nephew around our house, screaming at him, in an attempt to get him to leave. The neighbors came outside and my sister-in-law went into damage control mode, talking down one concerned neighbor from calling the police somehow. He dropped his sword in the chase, and my brother-in-law tackled him on our front lawn. They got him into my sister-in-law's car somehow, and they left with him. So, Easter dinner was ruined, my wife was in tears, and I was so mad I was shaking. The good news is that this was a wake-up call for my sister-in-law and brother-in-law. Under the threat of them withdrawing financial support, my nephew has agreed to seek therapy and surrender access to his Tumblr blog, which he previously would spend hours a day posting on. His mother went through it and found a lot of alarming posts, including content about his hatred for women, screenshots posted of his text exchange with my wife with captions bragging about his hurtful behavior, and several disturbing fanfictions with violent intimate content. They believe his being too online is worsening his behavior and are hoping that limiting his access and forcing him into therapy will help. Thank you to all who convinced me to stand my ground in the comments of my original post. Update 2. The situation is being taken seriously by my brother-in-law, wife, and myself. My sister-in-law still has her head buried in the sand a bit, but we are working on it. At the very least, she has not lifted the phone ban, and she has been looking through his Tumblr as well as his other social media to see if he really had violent intentions on Easter. She still believes my nephew only came to talk. In any case, he had his first therapy session with a new therapist this week. He has promised to stick with it, mostly because my sister-in-law said she would return his phone if he stuck with it long enough, though I'm not sure how long enough is. The plus side of him being a man-child is that he is either unwilling to just buy himself a new phone with the little money he has, or he doesn't realize that he is an adult who can gain financial independence, so his mother can't just threaten to take things away from him like he's a child in timeout. He has told his mom to tell us that he's very sorry for his behavior and that it won't happen again, though I'm skeptical. My wife is still holding out hope, but refuses to see him unless he shows substantial improvement. My brother-in-law is looking into resources for places he can get my nephew committed should that become necessary, but he believes that the situation is under control as long as my sister-in-law doesn't budge. They have also confiscated his sword, and I don't think he has access to other dangerous objects. I was also sent a link to my nephew's Tumblr blog. My sister-in-law has already seen it on his phone but did not want to share its contents because she feels like we have villainized her baby enough. I went through his blog with my wife and didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or pour bleach into my eyes. His blog basically confirmed what you all have been trying to tell me about his pattern of violence and hatred for women. He posts a lot about how females are all entitled and how he hates ever having to interact with them. Additionally, he seems to be stalking one of his exes, which is a whole other layer of concern. He also writes intimate explicit fanfiction about Muppets, which is not a safety concern but has permanently ruined the entire show for me. Sorry this update isn't very exciting, but a lot of people expressed concern for my family and my safety, so I am letting you all know the situation is being handled, and everyone is okay. For those wondering about the plushie of Kermit, it has gone missing according to my brother-in-law. I hope it stays missing forever. Edit. People are messaging me saying that he is back to updating his Tumblr account, so that likely means my sister-in-law has gone back on her word. I'm going to call my brother-in-law and update him. Also, he is still hiding the plushie somewhere because my brother-in-law was trying to throw it away and he can't find it anywhere. Update 3. Sorry for the lack of updates, life has been a bit crazy. My wife and I went no contact with my nephew and sister-in-law, which has been hard on my wife because she has always been close with her sister. We have kept contact with my brother-in-law, keeping him updated if we saw anything concerning on my nephew's Tumblr account, as many of you have kept me updated. And boy, did he post concerning stuff. I'm not sure what the last straw was, possibly when he posted about cutting off part of his coworker's hair and getting fired as a result, but my brother-in-law decided he had enough of my sister-in-law's permissive parenting and my nephew's destructive behavior going ignored. My brother-in-law has been trying to be harsher on my nephew to straighten him out, but my sister-in-law throws a tantrum every time he has tried, and now he has decided he's had enough. A few days ago, he packed up and left. Now, it looks like he and sister-in-law are going to get a divorce. He has been staying with us for a few days, going back once to make sure his horses were put in temporary boarding while he figures his stuff out. He is also working on getting a lawyer. In other news, my nephew has run away from home. He is 22, so I don't know if this means he has finally gotten an apartment or what. All I know is that a few hours ago, my sister-in-law called brother-in-law in hysterics crying that he had left a note and that it was all brother-in-law's fault. I think that he may have gone to stay with some internet friends, but my wife is getting worried as it is 3 a.m. and there is still no sign of him. Actually, I am also kind of worried, but I'm trying to stay level-headed and not think of worst-case scenarios. Sorry if this is unclear and sounds rushed, but stuff is still unfolding and this has been a lot to deal with. I will answer any questions you all might have once everything calms down a bit. Edit. Several hours after I made this post, the police found my nephew in a small forest a few blocks away. He was hiding in the trees, and I guess he was going to try to live there. They returned him to his mom's house. I am exhausted. My wife started acting strange after she found out how much I really make. It's like she's reverse gold digging because she gives my stuff to her family and tells me it's fine because I can afford it. I, 26M, have been married to my wife, Emma, 26F, for 4 years. She was a social work major who I met in one of my gen ed classes. I told her that I was a mechanical engineering major, and she then asked if I could tutor her in math, and that's how we began dating. Afterwards, I decided to pursue my master's in Japan to help me gain more career opportunities. Emma thought it was a silly idea and said she wouldn't help fund it. For context, we keep our finances separate besides our contributions toward shared bills, so it wasn't a big deal to me. I was still working anyway, so all it meant was I just had less free time. Maybe relevant, maybe not, but she was making more than me during this period. It paid off, and I recently landed a high-paying job, which came with more stress due to my frequent travels to Japan. I've really been wanting to get into gaming, so I invested in computer parts that ran me about $1,500. Once I took the parts out of the box, Emma noticed the receipt and asked how I could be so irresponsible with my money. She assumed I still made the same amount, but when I told her that I make that amount, she began giving me the silent treatment. During this time, I began to notice that my things were going missing. One time, I wanted to go fishing with some friends, and when I was looking for my rods, she must have noticed and said she had given them to her uncle. I told her not to take my stuff without asking, but I didn't mind too much because they were old, so I just bought some more. Another time, I was about to go to the gym, and I was looking for my pre-workout but it was nowhere to be found. I always keep 3 jars, so finding none of them was bizarre. When Emma got home from work, I asked her about it, and she said she gave them to her cousin. I asked her to reimburse me because they cost $50 a jar. She said I made enough to replace them and just ignored me for the rest of the day. One day, when she thought I was asleep, she was talking to someone on the phone, explaining how she's going to move her parents into our house. She hadn't explained this to me. We only have 3 rooms, one is her office, one is my office/game room, and the other is our bedroom. She told the person on the phone, who I assume is her sister, that she's going to give my gaming setup to her brother to make room and that I'll get over it eventually. So today, I left work early to confirm if what I heard was true or not. When I walked into our apartment, she and her brother were placing everything into a box. I asked what was going on, and Emma, whose face was pale, said she was cleaning when her brother came by. I asked him if he planned on taking my computer. Of course, he denied it. I went into the room to get the iPad we share, and I looked through the text there. It clearly showed Emma telling him when to pick it up and to deny that he had it. I told him to get out and asked her why she thought she was entitled to my stuff. We have had fights before, but I have never yelled at her like I did this time, and I guess this scared her because she began to cry. She ended up packing a bag and went to stay with her sister. While she was out, I picked up a lock from my office. Her sister texted me, calling me the jerk for making her sister cry. I'm so lost and confused, I don't know where to go from here. Update 1. Sorry I've been MIA for 2 months, things have been somewhat hectic. After about a week staying at her sister's house, Emma called me and asked if we could meet up. I agreed, and we met at a park. She apologized for everything and said she thought she was doing what was best for everybody. I didn't understand what she meant by that, and I asked her how she would feel if I just gave her expensive makeup to my sister. She admitted that she would be upset. I then asked why she thought it would be any different for me. She didn't have a reason, and even her sister told her how unfair she was being to me. We decided to give it another chance, and she moved back in. It was going well until she started moving her things into my office. I asked her what she was doing, and she explained how she needed the room for her parents. I told her no, and that's not happening. I grabbed her things and placed them back into her office. I told her that they could move in, but my space has to remain untouched. On top of that, we need to determine how bills are going to be paid. She called me selfish and then ran back to her sister's. I guess her sister told her she was being inconsiderate once again. And apparently, they got into an argument because the sister refuses to take their parents in and said she's tired of hearing about her problems. I agree with her, her sister already has 4 kids to deal with. Her sister called and told me everything and said that Emma went to her parents' house. I tried to call her, but she ignored my phone calls for 2 weeks. I decided I couldn't live like this, so I filed for divorce and handed it to her at her parents' house. She called and begged me to forgive her. I told her I'm not sure if I can. She refused to sign it until we tried counseling together. I refused and said she had 2 weeks to suggest that, but instead she just ghosted me. I'm currently living alone. She still refuses to sign the papers, but that doesn't stop the divorce, it just makes it harder. Update 2. Hey there, back again. I last updated around a month ago when I was having a falling out with my wife, Emma, because she would not respect my boundaries. If you don't want to bother reading all of this, the short of it, Emma was cheating on me. The rods and pre-workout didn't go to her family, they went to her affair partner. I found this out when her parents invited me over to their house. The long of it, Emma's parents invited me over to their house because she was being overly withdrawn. When I got there, Emma looked sick, like she hadn't eaten for days. Her parents asked why I kicked her out and said that me neglecting her is taking a toll on her mental health. Emma just sat there silently crying. I explained that I never kicked her out, and Emma refused to talk to me for weeks before I sent the divorce papers. I showed them texts of me practically begging her to come home so we could talk it out. I asked Emma what she told her parents. Her dad chimed in, saying that I went back on my word about letting her brother stay with me. I asked what they were talking about, and the reason we got into an argument is because they were supposed to move in. Emma ran to her room before she could be questioned. Her parents explained that they were happy with their home and had no plans to leave. I then showed them the text from her sister, Mary, explaining how Emma was mad at her because she couldn't take her parents in. They were confused, and I was confused. So her parents called Mary to have her explain, but her brother, Jake, was also there, and said he had some things he wanted to say. Emma was cheating on me, and Jake caught her and kind of blackmailed her. He was a freshman in high school, and we live in a better district where sports/athletics recruitment is more likely to happen. Emma thought I would be more inclined to say yes if I thought it was her parents moving in. Apparently, she saw no problems with it since someone would be moving in anyway. Emma's parents called her downstairs immediately. She was listening and began to tell her side. Her affair partner's wife found out, so he thought that relationship was over because she kicked him out of the house. He convinced Emma to quit her job because he got a job opportunity in a different state. But he was secretly meeting with his wife, and they got back together. He hadn't put in his 2 weeks yet, so his life resumed normally. Emma, on the other hand, didn't even put in her 2 weeks and just stopped showing up, so she was fired. When her affair partner told her it's over, she went into depression and tried to call me so we could go to counseling. I told her it's over and asked her to sign the paperwork so this divorce can go smoothly. She begged for another chance, but I just left her crying. Her parents informed me later that night that Emma was in the hospital from an overdose of pills. I just ignored it. Her dad is asking that I come to visit to show I care. I texted back that I don't care. I don't know what to do. The moment I found out about the affair, I fell out of love. I do feel somewhat cruel not going to visit her.
My family is telling me to give up the money I've been saving for my baby to my nephew because my baby isn't born yet, or it'll be my fault my nephew can't go to college. For a bit of backstory, my husband, Chris, 31M, and I, 30F, have been planning to have kids for quite some time now. About 2 years ago, I got pregnant, and we both told our families. My father-in-law, Rory, gave us a check for £1,000 and said he wanted us to use it to buy baby stuff while the kid was young, and whatever was left over should be saved for when our child turns 18 and then given to them. I lost the baby shortly after, and we tried to give Rory the money back, but he asked if we were planning on trying again. We replied that we wouldn't be anytime soon, but someday definitely. He said to keep the money, put it in a savings account, and keep adding to it for when we did have a baby. Chris and I tried to put in about £10 a week between us, which is doable for high school teachers. We missed a couple of weeks, but there's about £2,500 in there right now, and we've never taken out of it. In 2 years, the only people who have put money in this account are me, Chris, and Rory. Both Chris and I have a therapy, and we agreed to try again about 6 months ago. I'm now pregnant again, at 4 months. We told our families today, and both Rory and my mother-in-law are really happy for us, as are my parents. However, my brother, Tom, 35M, looked a bit sad. I asked if I could speak to him off to one side. In the conversation that ensued, Tom said that he had actually been hoping to ask me about the baby fund. Tom and his wife are both on a living wage, meaning they earn slightly less than us, as they had my nephew, Sean, 16M, at the age where they would have gone to uni, so it's important to them that Sean gets to go. Sean is 16 but plans to go to uni in a couple of years. Tom and his wife are concerned that if Sean got a job to save up, it would affect his grades, and they don't have money to spare. So, before Tom knew I was pregnant, he was basically hoping he could ask me to transfer the current contents of the baby fund over to Sean and keep giving Sean the money that would otherwise go into the baby fund, as he worries Sean will not be able to afford uni otherwise. If I were to agree to this and keep doing it until he finished uni, I could restart the baby fund when the baby I'm currently carrying is about 5 years old. I told Tom I wasn't comfortable with that for several reasons, the main ones being that at most a third of it is actually my money, that the money is meant for my baby, and that the money was also meant to be used when the baby was due to get baby stuff, which we'd struggle to afford otherwise on teachers' wages. I said I'd be willing to work something out, and that with the pregnancy, Chris is gradually taking on more housework, so maybe if Sean wanted to come over and do the garden or help with chores, I could pay him out of my money and not the baby fund. But Tom says that Sean can't be distracted from his studies. I said that while I love my nephew, I'm just not comfortable giving money meant for my child to Sean. Am I really in the wrong for saying no here? Edit. My family sides with Tom, as the baby isn't born yet, and I have time to rebuild the fund. Chris and Rory side with me in that the money, as far as they're concerned, is for their child/grandchild, but Rory also said, do what you think is best. My mother-in-law wants to keep the peace, but the initial money was just as much her idea as Rory's. Also, for clarification, Rory has no relation to either Tom or Sean, and no one on my side of the family other than me has made any contribution to the baby fund. Update 1. Up responding to a comment in a different thread when someone asked about their situation. Hi, of all the things I was expecting to see in this thread, I didn't quite expect this, lol. Still pregnant, about 7 months now. My husband and I agreed to pay my nephew and niece to do some jobs for me around the house, and they've accumulated a chunk of cash each, niece at around £100, nephew closer to £500, to check out when they go to university. My brother is none the wiser, and thanks to their efforts, the nursery is ready to go. Nephew has asked his parents to let him get a job, but still no luck. However, his college does these programs within school time which pay, so he's applying for one of those. My mother outright wished that I lost this child because I was so selfish to not help out family, and my brother agreed and said that he would make sure to teach my child to take care of others. They each made a Facebook post about it, which ended up with me getting a bunch of anonymous messages wishing sickness and ill will on me and my child. I came off social media, and I have not spoken to either my mother or brother in a couple of months. Outside of that, I'm doing okay. Baby looks healthy, marriage going strong, and no one has wished unalive on me or my baby since I blocked my mother and brother. So stuff got wild for a second there, but I think it's pretty much over.
My brother banned me from coming to his wedding because his wife's family is at war with the rainbow. Now my parents are banning him from their inheritance unless he divorces his wife. So, my brother's wedding happened 2 days ago, and it turned into complete chaos, which I know even though I wasn't there. You might wonder why I didn't attend the wedding if it's my brother's. Well, it's because of his wife's family. He did send me an invitation to the wedding because he wanted me there, but his fiancée told him I couldn't attend because I had a boyfriend. You might be confused, but I'm a man, and I have a boyfriend whom I wanted to bring to the wedding. She said that even though my brother and her don't have a problem with that, her extremely religious parents, who already forced her to have the wedding in a church, would most likely banish us from the wedding and cause trouble between our families. After she told him that, my brother told me I couldn't attend and explained why. You might think I was angry. The truth is, I was relieved. I hate going to big events with lots of people because of my social anxiety, and I was already used to not being able to attend certain events because of my orientation, so it was nothing I hadn't heard before. So on the day of the wedding, I stayed at home with my boyfriend. It's worth mentioning that my parents apparently didn't know I wasn't attending the wedding. I was chilling at home, cuddling with my boyfriend, when I suddenly got a text message from my parents asking me where I was because they couldn't find me at the wedding party. I told them I wasn't attending the wedding and asked if my brother hadn't told them anything. They said no and asked me what had happened. I didn't see any reason to lie, so I sent them a text message telling them exactly why. Now, I have to admit I don't exactly know what happened after I sent them this message because they read it but didn't reply. And why did they care in the first place? They didn't notice I wasn't there until the wedding was already over. They only noticed when the wedding party started. However, apparently my parents talked to my brother about it, and all of a sudden, my absence was the main topic of the wedding party. From what I heard, two fronts formed. On the one hand, my parents and the rest of my family against the family of my brother's wife, and apparently, as a husband now, he felt compelled to take her side and tried to argue in her favor. It's crazy to think that I was just sitting at home living my best life with my boyfriend while all of that went down at his wedding. The wedding party was ruined, and my brother appeared at my door angrily screaming at me, asking why I felt the need to ruin his wedding. I was confused and asked him what happened, and he told me everything. I told him it wasn't my intention. I just told our parents what happened because they didn't know and wanted to know where I was, and I thought he had told them beforehand. He screamed at me that I ruined his wedding. I told him it's not my fault he wasn't honest with them. I just respected their wish to not attend the wedding. I couldn't know it would go down like this because, like I said, I couldn't attend several events before because of my orientation, and my parents never said anything about it, so I thought it would be the same thing here. But I gotta admit it's kinda sweet that my parents and the rest of my family stood up for me. They haven't done it before. That's a more than welcome change. But I still feel kinda bad because apparently I really ruined the wedding party. Update 1. Didn't think I'd give an update, but many interesting things happened. So after my brother's visit, he and his wife went on their honeymoon. And the way the wedding party went might have been even worse than I imagined. What happens now is incredible. When I said in the main post that two fronts had formed, I only meant that metaphorically, of course, but it's no longer just that. While not much interesting happened in the first 2 days afterward, the terror started as soon as my brother and his wife went on their honeymoon. My mom and dad visited me and told me how the wedding party escalated, and they were so close to physical violence. I thought it was funny at first, but this truly bothers me. I also want to point out that you did a great job of convincing me it's not my fault, but hearing my parents' side still gives me a bad feeling in my stomach. However, like I said, the terror started shortly after they went on their honeymoon. And when I say terror, I mean that my sister-in-law's family found both my Facebook and Instagram accounts and started spamming me with hateful messages. I received insults and hateful messages from various different accounts, all of which had one thing in common. They all had somewhat of a Christian theme and the same last name. So it wasn't hard to find out whose accounts they were, mainly because I don't know my sister-in-law's family at all. I only know her, and I know her parents were hateful Christians. But whatever. They not only started attacking me, they also found my boyfriend's account through mine because we're linked as a couple and started sending him the same messages. The messages contained typical bigot stuff like, "You're burning in hell for your sins." One even called me and my boyfriend two devils in disguise. On the other side, there were just blatant insults. You get the idea. I called my parents and told them what they were doing. Then I sent a text message to my brother with screenshots of the messages his wife's family sent me, to which he replied that I shouldn't disturb him with that during his honeymoon as I already destroyed his wedding party. I couldn't believe it. He was just like them. He did send me an apology after my mom told me she called him. But none of this is the main reason I'm giving you this update this early. Because I got a call this morning from an unknown number. I hesitated because I thought it was one of them. And I was right, but it was none of the people who insulted me. I heard a woman's voice who introduced herself as the half-sister of my brother's wife. She said it didn't go unnoticed what her family was doing, and she wanted to apologize for them. I told her I'm not going to tell anyone in her family about this and that I don't blame her for her family's actions. She thanked me and hung up. I don't know why, but I have this feeling she only did this to protect her family from being reported. My mother wrote to me earlier that she wants to report the insults and the harassment of these people and that she demands for my brother to divorce his wife or she will disinherit him from her will because that's not how she raised him. A little radical in my opinion, but I understand where she's coming from. This entire thing escalated so much it's unbelievable. Thank you all for your support on my first post. Update 2. It's been a few days. First of all, my boyfriend and I are fine. Luckily for us, they didn't go any further than their text messages. My mom filed a report against them. I don't know the current situation about that as I haven't filed the report myself. The reason I'm updating you is a different one. First of all, one person in my sister-in-law's family is actually going to testify in my favor and against her family. It really takes courage to do so. It's the same person who called me in the last update. Somehow, they found out that she is into women. There's no reason to hide it anymore. However, she said she's fine and is going to stay at a friend's house. I have so much respect for what she does. Imagine the strength you need to testify against your own family. I now feel bad for assuming she only called me to save her family from being reported. More importantly, what is the current situation with my brother? Well, My mom talked to him and told him to leave his wife, or she will disinherit him from her will. He decided to stay with his wife, and my mom made her threat come true. He's no longer in her will. My father did the same. When I visited them, I also told them that I wish this entire situation had gone differently. They assured me it's not my fault, but I feel like if it wasn't for me, then my family wouldn't be ripped apart like this. I haven't talked to my brother since then. My boyfriend feels similar. He also told me he kind of feels responsible for all this chaos. I assured him it's not his fault. But honestly, I wasn't even sure if I could say this in my position. On the other hand, it was my sister-in-law's family's bigotry that ruined everything, and everything would have been fine if I could have just attended. But now it's time for me to distance myself from this situation. We'll see what the report will do. I followed your advice to document everything. The insulting and harassing messages continued until 2 days ago, so I have much to say about them. Unfortunately, the hate on rainbows is still very much normalized in our society. I already mentioned it in a post on my profile, but the reason I'm so calm and casual about the situation is the simple fact that I'm used to situations like this. They don't get to me anymore. If I let any insult get to me, I wouldn't make it for a long time. It's a coping mechanism. I've been in situations where I was sent to the hospital because I kissed my boyfriend in public. So insults and harassment like theirs are nothing I haven't seen before. I want to say thank you for all your support on my first 2 posts. Update 3. I think some of you are waiting for an update, so here I am. Keep in mind that this update will probably be the last one. So last time I told you my mother was pressing charges against them, and to my surprise, we won. They weren't going to jail or anything, but they had to pay for their actions, literally. There was one incident where my sister-in-law's dad was actually trying to find out where I lived and asked my brother, who then told him. Only God knows what he would have done to us if we still lived there. But in the time span of the last 2 months, my boyfriend and I moved to a different place which my brother didn't know anything about. Also, their social media accounts were deleted, but I don't know if this was part of their punishment or if they did it themselves. My mom has also carried out the threat towards my brother and disinherited him from her will. After he came back from his honeymoon, he begged her to put him back in. She said only if he apologized to me. She invited me and my boyfriend over, and my brother sat in the living room with this mad look on his face. She made him apologize, but I didn't accept this apology because I could tell it wasn't sincere. He did it because he had to and not because he was actually sorry. I told my brother that I am disappointed in him for who he has become. Before that, we had this huge bond. Usually, we never judged each other for stuff like this, and all of a sudden, he has such a problem with me having a boyfriend. I just don't get it. I told him that I miss the old him. He didn't respond to anything. He just sat there quietly, staring at the floor. After I finished, he just got up and left. This was the last time I spoke with him, and it's already been a few weeks since this happened. My parents paid much more attention to the discrimination I face since this incident. They wanted to learn more about the problems I face as a guy who likes guys. I really love them. My dad even got a pride flag for me and asked if he could hang it in our bedroom. I love that I have such great parents. I just wished for my brother to become the person he once was. By the way, since the case with my sister-in-law's family is over, I didn't hear anything about their lesbian daughter. She supported us during the process, but we lost contact afterward, and I just hope she's fine. Update 4. The final update of my story happened 6 months ago, and I figured some of you might be interested in how things are currently going. So, I'm back, at least for this post right now. There have been some things that happened. First of all, I want to give you an update about the sister of my brother's wife. Around 2 months after my last update, she texted us and asked if she could come over. We talked for a while, and I was relieved to find out that she is fine. She said that she moved in with her girlfriend when the case was over, simply because her parents and the rest of her family had disowned her and threatened her with physical violence if she dared to return. However, the relationship with her girlfriend ended after a while, and she asked us if she could stay for a few days until she found something. She stayed with us for 2 weeks. During that time, my parents had visited us and offered her to stay with them because they had a big house with some free space. She stays there currently because she wanted to study, and my parents had no problem with letting her stay a little longer. My boyfriend and I also support her financially a little bit. We included her in several different celebrations such as Christmas and New Year's Eve, and I feel like she is the sister I never had. What's probably more interesting for you is how my brother is currently doing. The truth is, I don't know exactly. We haven't talked since the apology. However, he actually tried to attend our Christmas celebration party, but the moment he appeared, my dad kicked him out and said that, and I quote, "This hateful rubbish is no longer allowed in my house." I love him. Oh, by the way, of course, both my parents went through with disowning him. My boyfriend and I are still together, and I feel like he might be the one I want to marry. This entire situation made our bond so much stronger. I plan on proposing to him, but there are so many ideas floating around in my head for the proposal that I can't really decide which one. Also, the social media accounts of my sister-in-law's family had disappeared entirely. All of them, but I assume they already made new ones under a new name. I'm just glad all of this is finally over. I don't have any compassion left for my brother. I just wish he had never developed this way. Everything that happened to him, he brought it on himself. If you guys want, I can update you when I'm engaged. Thanks for reading, and I wish you all the best. Update 5. Do you remember when I told you in my last update 2 months ago that I would propose to my boyfriend? Well, I did it today. I brought up so many ideas that it was really hard to decide, so I gave him some subtle hints. Not too obvious, just enough to see how he reacts and then decide based on his reaction. In the end, I made a photo album of us featuring the most important events in our relationship. Each of them had a thought of mine and a caption below them. Some of them were meaningful, but some of them were just random. Like one photo of us eating at his favorite restaurant on his birthday, and the caption just says something like, "Damn, that pizza was good." That made him laugh. We walked to his favorite spot in town, which is a wonderful lake. That is where I gave him the album and told him it's a present and to look through it. He was focused and didn't notice what I was doing behind him, as I just told him I was getting something I forgot. I positioned myself behind him, and that is when the last page came into play. That page had a photo of me holding the ring in the same way I positioned myself behind him, looking straight at the camera. And the caption says, "Hopefully, he says yes." He turned around in disbelief and started crying almost immediately when he saw me. I couldn't even finish the question, and he already said yes. It was exactly how I hoped it would go. I always dreamt of making my proposal like something out of a romance novel, and I was successful. So yeah, that's it. I'm gonna marry him. I already told my entire family except for my brother, of course. They were so happy about it, especially my mom and new sister. I assume my brother knows anyway, considering I shared it on Facebook. You guys probably aren't wrong that he might plan something, but if he does, it won't stop us.
My boomer father-in-law kept nagging about how wasteful my generation is, and his would never, so for Christmas, guess who got all our waste? So, for a bit of background, I, 32F, have a father-in-law, 67M, who fits the stereotype of a grumpy old man. My husband, 33M, mentions that his father wasn't always like this, but the years have turned him sour. My father-in-law is always complaining about something, constantly going on right-wing political tangents, always inserting his opinion even if he isn't involved in the conversation, and constantly whining that my husband and I never make time for him despite having him over for dinner every other week. My husband tolerates but doesn't entertain his grumpiness. I handle it like I would handle an incoherent toddler and just reply, "Wow, what an interesting thing to say," and then move along the conversation as if he weren't there. Recently, my husband and I completely reorganized our kitchen. Like most people, we had far too many coffee mugs. We decided to get rid of half of them, so about 17, and we put them in a box and set them aside to be donated. That evening, my father-in-law came over for dinner and noticed the box of mugs by the front door. When he asked about it, we simply said we had too many and needed to get rid of some. He immediately started rambling on about how wasteful our generation is, how we use something for 30 seconds and then throw it away, and how his generation would always use an item until it fell apart, then mend it and keep using it. He finished by saying someone his age would never consider discarding perfectly good items like that. I just responded with, "Okay," and continued getting dinner ready without addressing it further. Well, this past weekend we had our Christmas celebration with my husband's family. We celebrated early due to multiple family members going out of state for Christmas. We enjoyed our evening despite a few grumblings from my father-in-law. Towards the end of the night, we all exchanged gifts. That was when my father-in-law opened a big box of 17 used coffee mugs. He looked at my husband with a confused expression, so my husband said, "You were so vocal about how we shouldn't get rid of perfectly good mugs, so we decided to gift them to you since you clearly wanted them." My father-in-law started making excuses about how he didn't need that many and how he already had mugs and didn't have the space to keep them. My husband just shrugged and said, "I'm sure you'll find something to do with them. Your generation is very resourceful." It's only been 2 days since he got his new mug collection, but he's called my husband and me 7 times trying to convince us to take back the mugs. All I've said was, it would be wasteful for us to take them back. Thank you so much for saving the perfectly good mugs. Update 1. Back in December, I posted about how my father-in-law berated my husband and me for being wasteful when he found out we were getting rid of an excessive number of coffee mugs from our home. We originally planned on donating the mugs, but since my father-in-law was greatly offended by us getting rid of them, we decided to gift him all 17 mugs for Christmas. He was not pleased. It's been about 4 months since this incident. Father-in-law eventually stopped trying to get us to take the mugs back and just accepted his new collection. My husband's family is rather large, and we've celebrated a few birthdays these past few months. Father-in-law has decided to include a coffee mug in people's presents. My husband and I each got one back on our birthdays. My little niece got one for her 4th birthday, and he even sent one to his ex-wife for her birthday. It's become a running joke now that everyone will receive a mug and every mug will continue to be regifted. My father-in-law's birthday is in June, so all of us plan on wrapping up the mugs we've been regifted and giving them back to him. Father-in-law is still as grumpy as ever, but at least he turned his petty revenge into a funny family joke.
My younger sister sabotaged my older sister by telling the love of her life that she was already taken and then hooked up with him. Now they're engaged and I'm not sure if I should expose her. For context, my older sister, Kate, 32F, met my younger sister's fiancé, Matt, 32M, about 3 years ago. He was hired as a consultant at her company for a few months' assignment. My younger sister, Jess, 28F, had not yet met Matt at this time. Kate and Matt became close, but nothing happened because they probably didn't think it was professional. I think both, or I know that my sister at least, was hoping that it would develop into something more when his assignment was completed. Kate is a very shy and private person, but even with that, she couldn't stop talking about Matt to Jess and me. When she turned 30, we encouraged her to invite him too with the rest of her close friends from work for her birthday. She was very hesitant and panicked at first, but then she thought, yeah, why not? His assignment was almost done anyway. Matt and Jess met at that party. 6 months later, Jess told us that she and Matt are a couple. This devastated Kate, and I knew that even if she held herself together and pretended to be happy for them, I almost made her confess her heartbreak to me because I couldn't just let her hurt alone without any support. Kate said that after her birthday, Matt changed towards her and was even a bit angry. Then when he left, he stopped talking to her altogether. Kate said that she probably misinterpreted his interest in her. I know that she is still heartbroken about it. Matt was assigned with her company some more times again, and it was awkward at first, but eventually, they were friends again. Now he is a part of the family, and Kate never showed that she's hurt. Fast forward to present times, I recently found out that Jess told Matt that Kate had a boyfriend at that birthday party. Matt is very handsome and lovely, and Jess basically wanted him. Matt was shocked at first because he was hoping for something more, but he probably just thought that he too misinterpreted Kate's interest in him. He is very shy too. After the party, he probably decided to cut his losses and not pursue Kate. Jess, however, kept contacting him, was being supportive, and asked him out. At first, he refused, but then they started dating. How do I know all that? Jess's roommate spilled the beans to me, thinking I already knew everything since I am closer to Jess than Kate. Matt has now proposed to Jess. I feel sick because I want to tell Matt what happened so he makes an informed decision. Marriage is not a game. At the same time, he and Jess seem to be perfect for each other, and the love is genuine. Maybe he was interested in Kate, yes, but obviously it wasn't that deep if he moved on that fast. Also, Kate? I want to tell her, but she seems okay with the relationship too. She made it clear that Matt and Jess were obviously meant to be or it wouldn't have happened. But I want to tell her. Would I be overstepping if I told everyone what happened? Commenter. Are you doing this so Kate and Matt get together? There's zero chance that Matt and Kate end up together. If this was before the birthday, then maybe, I think they were crazy about each other, but now there's no chance. I just want my big sister's heart to heal and for Matt to make an informed decision. What else has Jess done to Kate or stolen from her? She stole a boyfriend when we were younger. Jess was 15 at the time, so obviously the blame lay with the guy who was 20. It was grooming, and nobody put the blame on Jess, but yeah, she got together with Kate's first boyfriend. Is Jess the golden child? Not at all. Our parents love us all equally, and if anything, Kate is the firstborn and probably mom's favorite. I don't know why Jess did this. She's always been a bit obsessed with Kate. It seriously never came up that Kate had a crush on Matt? No, it has never come up. Besides me, Jess, and probably some very close friends, nobody knows what's in Kate's heart, and we only know because we know her well and can tell, not because she tells us. After Matt disappeared from her life, she made sure never to talk about him again. When he came back as Jess's boyfriend, she just acted happy for them. I don't think they were talking about being together either, but they both just hoped something would happen. I think when Matt found out that Kate had a boyfriend, he probably thought that he imagined things that weren't there about her being interested. Same for Kate, she probably thought that she imagined him liking her and was mistaken. Jess is very protective of Matt too. She had a very hard time accepting him working with Kate again, and she tried everything to make him find new jobs. Now I know why. We all just thought she wanted him to advance in his career because she is very ambitious. But he always said he loved his job. Then when it was a fact that he and Kate were friends again, she made sure that she's always close by. Kate is very private and professional. I doubt she discusses her dating life with Matt, even if they're close at work. Update 1. So yesterday, I did it. I know many here advised me to keep out of it, but I chose to go with my gut. Honestly, I have been very angry with Jess, and basically, I thought it was time that she learned the consequences of her actions. If her and Matt's relationship is strong and real, then nothing would come between them. If it isn't, then I did the right thing. Most importantly, I did right by Kate. I used the opportunity to introduce my girlfriend to my family yesterday. Mom teased Kate about being the only one left, and I said something along the lines of, I can't believe that it's been 4 years since Kate had a boyfriend. Her ex went home when the pandemic hit, and he couldn't fly back, and he announced his engagement to another woman on Facebook. That's how Kate knew it was over between them, and it was terrible. Jess was very nervous and wanted to change the subject, but Matt was shocked over how someone would do this to their girlfriend. I don't think he really did the math at first, and he didn't react. I was annoyed, to be honest. So I insisted, yeah, when she introduced you at her 30th birthday, I really thought she had a crush on you because she never shut up about you, but a few months later, you and Jess got together. I mentioned in a joking manner that it was confusing, surely not only for me, but the rest of the family too, but then again, Jess has done this before and stole Kate's first boyfriend. This was followed by the loudest silence. I knew I went too far this time, but I couldn't control my anger towards Jess, and I wasn't going to sit there and hope Matt would connect the dots himself. Everyone was very silent, and Jess was looking daggers at me. Matt didn't say anything, and Kate was angry too and said that it was a long time ago. Matt and Jess left shortly afterward, and Kate asked me why I would embarrass her. I told her that Jess had lied to Matt about her having a boyfriend at her birthday party 2 years ago, and that's why Matt ghosted her because he thought Kate was playing him. Kate was shocked, so she didn't know as I expected. Mom was shocked too. This morning, Kate called. She wanted to know more. She told me that she was very heartbroken for the longest time and confused as to why Matt ghosted her, but now she knows at least, even though she had hoped that he liked her a bit more to talk to her before ghosting her. I said that I believe she deserved better than him, and she laughed and agreed. Now I know that I have made the right decision, at least by my sister, which is the most important thing to me right now. I haven't heard from Matt or Jess, so I don't know if they'll stay together or not. All I know is that they were supposed to be on a weekend mini trip to see a venue on the coast, and this trip was cancelled because Jess usually shares on her stories, and they haven't left town this weekend. I feel saddened, of course, but not sure if I feel guilty. Maybe it will hit me later. I don't know. Up in the comments. Yes, Matt broke up with Jess, and Jess is angry with me, but she just thinks that it was an innocent comment. Matt, however, wrote Kate a text explaining everything, so now everyone knows that way Kate and Mom knew already, but they acted like they only heard it from Matt. Still, Jess is angry with me and has unfollowed me everywhere, saying I ruined her happiness. I texted her that if her relationship was real, it would have survived an innocent comment like the one I made. Kate called me, and she said that Matt has apologized and explained everything to her. She has forgiven him, although she said there was nothing to forgive really since she truly believes that things weren't meant to be. They are staying friends, however, and they are very close friends. Jess called Kate a BTCH and blocked her everywhere and wrote a nasty comment about her on Instagram that she was a man-stealer, then unfollowed her. My mom is very distraught now, but I think she will survive. I will survive too, and I still have no feelings of guilt about what I did. I am starting to think that I really did do the right thing, and I am proud of myself for it. As Kate said, things that are meant to happen will happen. My girlfriend didn't tell me that she had kids and I feel completely confused and blindsided about it. I, 28M, and my girlfriend, Kat, 25F, have been together for a little over 2 years. Our relationship has been pretty awesome. She really lights up my life, and I adore her. Yesterday, I was helping Kat move to her new house. Everything was normal until the bottom of the box that I was carrying up to her room fell through, and it all ended up on the floor. Everything that was in the box was okay except for the small wooden/wicker box that split a little bit around the hinges for the lid. Because of the way the little box split, a photo had slid out. I opened the lid so that I could put the photo back in. I wasn't trying to snoop at all, but I decided to look at some of the photos. It was a lot of family, pets, and friends from different places and life stages. Then, I came across a few photos of Kat in a hospital bed holding 2 newborn babies, followed by more pictures of the babies. I kind of froze, and my stomach twisted. Kat walked into the room and saw me sitting on the floor with the baby pictures, and she looked horrified. We didn't say anything for a few moments, and then she sat on the floor in front of me and asked if I had any questions about what I had just found. I asked her if these were her babies, and she started crying while nodding yes. I felt myself getting angry, and I asked her why she would hide them from me. We've been together for over 2 years, and we were starting to plan our future. I told her that I didn't want to be a stepdad, and she had told me that she didn't want to have children. At this point, I was yelling, and she was just crying, not saying anything until she blurted out, "They're not alive anymore." I didn't have anything to say, and I couldn't stand to look at her, so I left. I decided to call my parents, and I told them everything that I wrote in this post. My dad said that I needed to talk to her and that I was rude and unempathetic in the way that I handled things, and my mom totally reamed me out for walking out on a good woman who has clearly gone through something traumatic enough that she never wanted to talk about it because I couldn't handle myself for 10 minutes to let her explain. My best friend thinks that I'm justified though. She's been trying to call me and sending me texts asking to meet with her so that she can explain everything, but I just feel betrayed and confused. I don't know where to go from here. Update 1. I'm not sure how many people will be interested in this update, but I figure I'll put it up. On Monday night, shortly after having my rear handed to me by everybody in the comments and DMs, as well as my mom telling me that I'm not the son she raised, I decided to call Kat and ask her if we could talk about everything. She said yes, but that it's an in-person talk, so we made plans for me to go over to her place Tuesday evening. I couldn't focus on anything at work, so I cut my day short and went to her place earlier in the day. It was a difficult conversation. She told me about how she ended up in an abusive relationship when she was just under 18. She talked about how this man had so much control over her that she could hardly even breathe, and the vile things he would say and do to her. Eventually, he got her pregnant by force, and she wanted to terminate, but he basically locked her inside until she was too far along to do anything about it. The twins were born, and she knew that she needed to escape with both of them. She played happy family and did her best while she made arrangements and healed physically. Having twins gave her an excuse to have her mom come around to help with everything, including documenting and escaping. Everything was ready to go when the twins were 1 year old, and Kat was 20. He figured it out towards the end, and when he realized he wouldn't be able to stop her, he unalived the kids, tried unaliving her, and unalived himself. She told me about the guilt she felt in so many ways, from wanting to terminate them to begin with, to having kids with the wrong person, to not being able to get them out safely, and why she deserved to live when her babies didn't. She went through a ton of therapy and was eventually able to get to a good place and start living again, thriving honestly. She said that she didn't think she could love again, and she fell in love with me unexpectedly, so she never thought about how she would share this part of her past with a new partner. She found it easier and safer to just never bring it up but apologized for not telling me sooner. I told her that she has nothing to apologize for and that my initial reaction was unjustified. I should have stayed and talked to her, I shouldn't have raised my voice at her. Everything I did was wrong, and I am so sorry for not being a better partner and a better man. She's told me that she needs some time and space to figure out where she wants to go from here because she didn't like how I reacted to the news, and she sees me differently now. I messed up, and now I might lose the most incredible woman I've ever known. I'm terrified, and I just want to go to her, hold her, and beg her for forgiveness, but I know that will only make her feel smothered. To address some of the comments in my original posts, I never asked her if she had kids. I only asked if she wanted kids, to which she said no. She never lied, she just left out the horrible passing of her children, which I now understand. Thank you to everybody who was rightfully brutal and honest. I'm not sure where our relationship will go from here. Update 2. Hey, not sure if there's anyone still keeping track of this, but it's been around 17 months now, and we have both moved on. For over a month after my last post, I waited. I waited for her to speak to me again, hoping she could forgive me and we could move on together. In mid-December, she called me and told me that she wanted to talk. I was ecstatic and raced over to her place, only stopping to get flowers on the way. When I arrived, she let me in, and I saw that she still had not finished unpacking. In fact, it looked like she never even started. She noticed me looking around and told me that she's moving in with her brother, who lives in another province, and that she doesn't want to be with me anymore. I begged and pleaded, telling her that she meant everything to me and that I would do anything to make things right. However, she stayed quiet, only shaking her head before saying that she doesn't feel emotionally safe with me anymore. She told me that if I had reacted differently when I found out about her lost twins, then she would have been able to move past this with me. But my reaction told her everything she needed to know. You made my traumas about you and your backwards feelings and reacted explosively over something that has nothing to do with you. How could I ever trust you to work through anything difficult? Then she asked me to leave. I put the flowers on the counter and left. A week later, she texted me to tell me she had a box of my things and I needed to come get them. When I arrived, the door was unlocked, and I walked inside. The house was completely empty aside from a box with some of my clothes, pictures, trinkets, and gifts, all memories of us. The flowers I brought her were wilted with a note that read, "Lock the door when you leave." Fast forward a few days, it's Christmas Eve, and I went over to my parents' place. We had a quiet evening, and as per tradition, my siblings and I stayed the night. On Christmas morning, I texted Kat to wish her a Merry Christmas, but the bubble turned green. I was blocked. Later that evening, my mother left the room and called Kat to wish her a Merry Christmas. Previously, I did tell my parents that she had kids that passed away, how I found out by accident, and what my reaction was, but I never gave them all the details that came from my second conversation with Kat. My mother came back in tears, seething with rage, and screamed at me to get the hell out of her house. Kat told her everything, and in excruciating detail. I was effectively disowned by my family, with the exception of one brother. My life was falling apart faster than I could gather the pieces, and I slipped into a deep depression. For months, running on autopilot, I drank too much and used substances too much and let myself go. After a string of bad decisions, my brother who kept contact convinced me to go to therapy. It was hard, but it helped a lot, and I soon started picking myself back up. A couple of months ago, I was scrolling through social media and saw a post featuring Kat from a mutual friend of ours. They were on a group vacation, and Kat had a new boyfriend. I decided to send our mutual friend, Anna, a DM asking about Kat, and I was met with a surprisingly friendly response of mild and vague info. She's doing well and thriving in BC. We continued to chat for a few days before we decided to meet for coffee. We have been seeing each other since, and recently, we made things official. I love her more than life itself, and I plan on marrying her one day, but my heart still aches for how I hurt Kat. Edit. Anna does not know. The story Kat gave her was that she fell out of love with me, so she ended it, and I never corrected her. I assume it's because she doesn't want to tell people her story. As for being in love with Anna after only a few months, when you know, you know. I did love Kat, I loved her very much, but not how I love Anna. My wife skipped the New Year's ball drop with our kids to drop on another man's balls. I forgave her, but now the betrayal is eating at me inside. For context, coming into the new year, I had no idea my wife had been, at the bare minimum, having an emotional affair with a coworker. On New Year's Eve, before I found out about this, she came home and acted extremely cold toward me and our kids, just in a really pissed off mood. Earlier that evening, she asked if she could go out to have one drink with a female coworker, whom I knew and trusted, and I told her that was cool but that the kids were staying up for the ball drop, so as long as she could be back to celebrate with them, I was fine with it. Well, she ended up getting off work at 11:30 and barely had enough time to get home. After the ball dropped, she cried and cried. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she got invited to her friend's house to have drinks with them. I said, "Look, I'm not sure what's wrong and why you're crying about this, but it's fine, you deserve a girls' night out every once in a while. I don't mind watching the kids, just go." I put the kids to bed, she left, and then about 3 hours later, so 3 a.m., I tried to contact her. No answer. I waited about 15 minutes, called her again. No answer. I called her friend who she's supposed with. No answer. She then texted me back 5 minutes later and said, "Yeah, I'm still coming home tonight. We're still drinking." Never in our 6 years of marriage had I felt a gut feeling that something else was going on, but that night it all hit me. I went through our phone records and found another number I was unfamiliar with that she had been in contact with all night. Ignoring my calls, texting that number in between, etc. She had also been texting this number for a 3-month period daily. I never suspected that she would be texting another dude while right beside me, watching family movies either, as the times had shown. How I didn't see this, I have no idea. Maybe she had this individual listed as mom in her phone. I don't know. I had never gotten this vibe or feeling our entire marriage. I was blindsided by it. Anyway, I confronted her about it through text with the proof like an idiot. She speeds home, deletes everything on her phone, no way of getting the backups restored, no way of ever knowing she did not meet up with this guy. Upon finding this out, I immediately told her I wanted a divorce. It was at this point she began getting violent with me. Talking crap about everything I had been doing to keep us financially stable, the 18-hour workdays that kept a roof over our heads. She told me that I needed to leave even though I pay rent and both our kids are asleep. I refused. We slept in separate rooms that night, and the next day she tried to act like nothing even happened, claiming that she remembered we'd fought but couldn't remember what it was about. So I show her the phone records even though I'm positive she was just trying to pull some crap, and she confesses who the individual was and says they flirted a lot but never actually met up. I told her if that was true, she'd have no issues restoring the text messages she deleted, at which point it was confirmed she deleted everything and deleted her last backup. Since then, she's tried hard to convince me they never did anything and never saw each other aside from work. I keep finding bits and pieces of things that don't make sense. Chunks of text deleted from her friends' messages around that time, pictures on her Google Drive from that night, where she was with, who she said she was, all deleted from her phone. For what reason? The most damning evidence I have is for a 2-hour period on New Year's Eve. They stopped texting each other then randomly started texting again at around 3 a.m. when I started calling and got that feeling. My gut tells me she left her friend's place, went to his place, and then went back, or, she went straight to his place from our place, then went to her friends when she found out I was calling them. There are revealing pictures of herself she never sent me also on her Google Drive taken on Snapchat. She's since given me all her attention and initiates intimacy tenfold. The texting stopped, and she shows me everything on her Snapchat and even downloads her data to show me she's not hitting other people up. I'm seeing the side of her I haven't seen since we were married all those years ago, but I can't help but trust my gut in demanding a divorce. I feel like she's kept things from me, and not knowing for sure is eating me up inside. Sorry for the way this was written, I'm aware there is some jumping back and forth, and I'm just scatterbrained right now. It's honestly getting to me more now than the night I found out. I feel stupid, just know that it's been over 4 months since this occurred. My parents know all of this and keep pressuring me to work it out and not dwell. My brothers are saying, screw that, get a divorce. Am I wrong in seeking a divorce? It's also worth adding I come from a family that has thoroughly convinced one of my cousins that she needs to stay in her marriage even when her husband became solely reliant on her, got addicted to coke, is still addicted to coke, and physically abused her. All because by golly, no one in this family has ever gotten a divorce. So essentially, doing so, I would get disowned by my parents, my sister, all my cousins, all my aunts, all my uncles, but I would still have the support of my 2 brothers. I've been ignoring her since last night, and she's been snapping and calling me all morning to see what's wrong. Update 1. After a long day of considering my options, on Friday, I sat my wife down in the evening when she got off work and after I had put the kids to bed. As soon as I brought up that my trust in her was completely gone, she immediately became argumentative and essentially stated, I thought we had left this in the past. You never trusted me, did you? I responded, even if you didn't do anything physical or meet up with him outside of work, you'll never let me see those text messages. You'll never pull the Snapchat data. She responded, you're right, marriage is based on trust, and if you don't trust me, then maybe we ought to call it quits. The irony in this is that I worked 18 to 19-hour days for the past few years, barely being able to do anything I wanted to do in my life because I was supporting our children, getting them to bed, cleaning the house all the time, doing all the cooking, and barely even getting enough sleep, probably took years off my life just from the stress. She, on New Year's Eve, said screw the kids, screw you, and essentially went out to party with her friends, all the while ignoring calls from me and our daughter asking where she was, while also responding to her bare minimum emotional affair partner. Not getting into all the details so as to not repeat myself between this and the update. Long story short, in my state, we have to be separated for a year before a divorce can be finalized. When I agreed with her that we should start separating and that I had already been in contact with a lawyer, she freaked the FCK out on me. She begged me not to go through with it, but alas. Next Friday, I will be dropping her off at her parents' a few hours away. The kids will be staying with me for now, with the help of one of my brothers. I told her there was only one way I would put this off for now, pull the data, pull the texts, prove your case. She looked down at the ground, one more time, and told me that's a violation of her privacy. We haven't spoken since. For now, for my kids, I gotta keep on keeping on. Op in the comments. I hate the trickle truths. First, it was a guy in a different state. Second, it was a coworker. Third, it was someone underneath her that she supervises. Fourth, and just now, randomly got a text from her stating she may have told him she loves him, but instantly regretted it, and that's it. Yeah, okay. Update 2. I have filed for divorce against my family's wishes, a whole other story also answered in the previous thread. We are separated, but the divorce can't be finalized until next year. 1 year of being separated is required. She begged and begged for me not to go through with it, begged me to stay, not to toss everything out over one little mistake. Funny how she sees infidelity as a mistake that lasted 3 months. Regardless, I've spent a lot of time with my kids. She sees them on weekends if she chooses. I'd love to say that I'm over it all, but I'm still healing. I really did love her, and I wish things worked out differently, but I can never trust her again. She tried everything she could intimately to get me to stay. Hell, the day she finally confessed everything, I came home to her dressed up like never before, ready to go. I declined. She went as far as offering me head every day for the rest of our lives if I stayed. I've been working and taking care of the kids. It's harder on them than it is on me if I'm being honest. They still don't understand. I've just been telling them mommy has some things she's working on. I don't have the heart to tell them we won't be a functional household anymore at this time. Also, my parents haven't once talked to or reached out to me since I told them I was filing for divorce, not even to check on my kids or anything. But I've been making this work with the help of my brother and a few good friends. A few girlfriends from the past have hit me up to see if I want to catch up, but I need to focus on myself and my kids. Thank you all for reaching out through DMing and commenting. Commenter. Has she actually admitted to cheating and the scope of what she did? I'm sorry, I didn't see that in any of your posts. Ah, sorry. Yes, she sent me a half-baked confession while I was at work through Snapchat one day, bawling hysterically, telling me she messed up and kissed him one time after he walked her to her car. I don't believe that for 1 second. I said, if that's all, then prove it by providing me with the messages you deleted. Once again, I was met with, that's an invasion of my privacy, plus if I were in your position, I would just want to forgive, forget, and move on. Easy for the cheater to go ahead and say. I pressed it a few more times and was met with, trust me, you don't want to read that crap. Why would you want to read that? Case closed. Edit. I'm going to vent for a second. I'll be honest with you all. I tried to give her one final chance to talk things through. I told myself the minute she got hostile about it all, I was done. Within 5 minutes of our final talk, I was being blamed for working too much. I quote, this isn't a F-King trial. You weren't perfect either. I was practically screaming for help, and you let me drown. I took the kids to daycare, cleaned the house all the time, picked them up after work, put them to bed, did all the cooking, did the dishes, took on a side hustle to give her a dream vacation, which we went on just before her affair started. The real kicker I didn't tell you all about was when I went through her phone that first night. I saw messages from her and her mom talking about how she felt a disconnect, that I wasn't what she wanted anymore, months before her affair began. Her mom highly encouraged her to sit me down and explain the way she felt. She even told her mom that she did. She never did. Apparently, sitting me down and having a talk was her going off and having an affair. I guarantee she'll never find someone who will treat her the way I did. Breakfast in bed Saturday and Sunday. I woke up with the kids so she could sleep in for years. She gave it all up for someone who can't even cover their own bills and still lives with mommy and daddy. The only thing he had that I didn't was more time because of a part-time job.
My friend flanked me out of nowhere with his feelings for me and told me to leave my boyfriend. I said no, so now he's told everyone we were having an affair and my boyfriend believes him. To start off, I want to acknowledge how messed up this situation is, and I understand why my boyfriend would be upset and even suspicious, but I can't believe he doesn't trust me. So, I, 25F, have been with my boyfriend, Paul, 25M, for 3 years. In the beginning of our relationship, Paul had some trust issues, as he had been cheated on in the past. I made it clear right away that I had never cheated on anyone, that I would not, and that I understood if he had trust issues from the past, but that it was a deal breaker for me to be with someone who couldn't trust me. Since those early days, he has been really good about it, and throughout our 3 years together, I think I have earned his trust. I have always been honest with him and never cheated on him. He's asked to see conversations of mine that I've had with male friends twice over those 3 years, and I've obliged. The second time, however, I made it clear to him that I was very unhappy to be treated as though I was acting suspiciously and did not deserve privacy with my friends when he had no reason at all to think I was being shady. I said that if he didn't trust me because of something I had said or done, I was 100% happy to have a conversation about that, to discuss it, and to address any issues he had, but if I had done literally nothing to cause suspicion, then I expected him to trust me. He agreed with me, said that I had done nothing, and never asked again. One of those conversations he asked about was with my friend, Roger, 24M. 2 years before I started dating Paul, Roger had confessed feelings of love for me. I told him I wasn't interested, and that was that. By the time I was seeing Paul, I had absolutely no reason to think things were anything but platonic between Roger and myself. A week ago, Roger and I got together for coffee. Again, I want to stress that before this happened I had literally no reason at all to think he had held on to those feelings. At the cafe, Roger suddenly went on this impassioned monologue about how much he still loved me, how Paul was a terrible boyfriend and I should dump him and be with Roger, how loyal Roger was, how perfect we were together, etc. I was pretty much silent through this whole speech because I was so surprised and uncomfortable, but when he stopped, I told him in no uncertain terms that I loved Paul, that I was absolutely not leaving Paul, and that I needed to go home immediately. I was shaken up by the whole thing, so I took my time getting home to calm down. However, by the time I got home, I found that Roger had sent a long, utterly insane Facebook message to Paul detailing how much he loved me, that we were destined to be together, and heavily implying but not outright stating that Roger and I had been carrying on an affair for weeks. I don't know why he did this. I have no explanation, and Paul believes it completely. He has listened to my explanation of things but thinks I am lying. He doesn't want to see me or talk to me at all anymore. I'm completely devastated that Paul would believe this Facebook message over me. I'm horrified that my relationship with him has ended like this. I'm embarrassed that now I'm being seen as a cheater and a SLT who slept around on Paul. I'm utterly hateful toward Roger. It's been a week, and I can't convince Paul to talk to me. I know he had those trust issues in the past, but I really believed we were long past them. What should I do? Commenter. As messed up as what Roger did truly is, it's also true that you partially brought this on yourself. You can't be friends with someone after they tell you that they love you. For God's sake, he didn't tell you he saw you as more than a friend, he didn't tell you that he had a crush on you. He told you he loved you. Did you think that was just going to evaporate? You had no business remaining friends with him after that. You know why? Because 1, it did a major disservice to Roger. He can't move on with his life as long as you're in it. And because 2, he was a threat to your relationship. And if you want proof of that, read your post. I definitely hear what you're saying, but I just want to point out that I never believed feelings would magically evaporate. Roger said he loved me 5 years ago, and we were distant from each other for about a year after he told me he loved me. Then we reconnected through mutual friends and were friends for a year before I dated Paul. During that year, he acted totally platonically around me, and I guess I thought he had had enough time to get over his feelings. He's been totally platonic as well for the 3 years I've been with Paul. Obviously, I was wrong, and you are right about how I should have cut him out. But I didn't think the feelings would just disappear. I thought the year we weren't really in contact had made them go away. However, Paul has already heard the whole and complete story, including what Roger said 5 years ago. He thinks I'm lying, however, when I say there is nothing between Roger and me now. Should I still push the issue with Paul and try to make him talk to me? He's heard everything already, he just refuses to believe me. Update 1. I want to thank everyone so much for commenting. Before I post what happened, I just want to address a few things that I didn't get to in the first post. First, Paul knew I was having coffee with Roger. It wasn't some kind of secret thing. Paul has female friends he has lunch or coffee with alone too, so this isn't unusual in our relationship. Second, Paul did not know that Roger had said he loved me 5 years ago. I definitely made a mistake not telling him that, but honestly, it was so long ago, and I thought it was old history. We did not extensively discuss our pasts, so there wasn't really a natural point where it would have come up, and it just never occurred to me to say anything. Finally, Roger and I did not have a particularly intense friendship. It's not like we were texting constantly or best buddies, we hung out occasionally and would be in touch if something relevant came up, but we didn't just chat randomly. Anyway, with that said, I took the advice of some Redditors. When I was a little calmer, I messaged Roger on Facebook, asking him why he lied. He responded with, "What do you mean?" at which point I started pressing him harder. He responded only with one-word answers and honestly didn't reply to most of my messages at all, no matter how much I asked, and never actually made any definitive statement like, "Yes, I lied for such and such a reason." Finally, I sent him a definitive statement that said I had never had an affair with him, that I was incredibly hurt and angry, that our friendship was over, and that he was never to contact me again. He replied, "Okay," and that was that. I sent the entire Facebook conversation to Paul, not thinking it would help save us but just to try and clear my name. In the message, I asked him if Roger's reactions to my questions and my response to Roger were in line with what he would expect if Roger's accusations were true. Paul didn't respond that day, but the next day he called me. Paul basically said that the more he thought about it, the more he believed me, and that the conversation between Roger and me helped him believe that. He said Roger's responses didn't make sense and that he now thought nothing had happened. However, he said despite that, the trust was broken between us, and he couldn't be with me. I got pretty mad and yelled at him, asking why I was being punished for nothing, and he just basically disengaged from the discussion. Not my finest moment, I know, I was just so overwhelmed with frustration. We did eventually end the conversation calmly, if not amiably, and he is dropping off the stuff that I had left at his apartment later this week. I learned my lesson. Not only will any declaration of interest by a friend end that friendship forever, but I will never date someone who has trust issues or a history of being cheated on again. I'm sure I come across as a little bitter about this, but honestly, I feel like there was absolutely no point to my fidelity and honesty during those 3 years. I got treated like a cheater whether or not I cheated, and both Paul and I ended up hurt and alone despite being 100% faithful. It's better to end up alone or stick to friends with benefits than to invest another 3 years in a relationship only to have this be the conclusion.